morning, Liberty students. This morning we're in the next chapter of Joshua, right after the big battle of Jericho and this huge victory where God works this miracle. In the next chapter, in chapter 7, Israel immediately loses a battle. And Joshua's first reaction is, oh, God has abandoned us. And God very quickly interjects and says, no, Joshua, I haven't abandoned you. The fault is because of sin amongst the people. They did not obey my instructions. And you'll dig into the details of that. But what they uncover is that someone has disobeyed God's instructions about the destruction of Jericho and therefore brought sin into the camp because they have hidden this sin and kept it a secret. And there's a couple really important things for you guys to learn this morning. Number one, and both of them are on a very personal level, but a very significant level in your relationships with God and with others, is number one, that this idea in our culture that as long as nobody finds out, or as long as it's not hurting anyone else, then you can do whatever you want. Even if it's, sinful or bad, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, then it's okay. And this is a reminder that really our sin never just doesn't hurt anyone. It harms us, it offends the Lord and affects our relationship with the Lord, but almost every sin we can commit has some sort of effect on the lives of those around us. And so that's important to remember, not to take sin lightly. But also it's a reminder of our need to confess things and get things right with the Lord and not hide sins from the Lord or from others that we need to deal with. In Psalm 32, the author of that psalm is dealing with it somewhere else in the Bible, a different story than what's happening in Joshua 7. But that author, David, has had some sin that he hid, but then he confesses it to the Lord and finds forgiveness. And he says, when I hid my sin, God's hand was heavy upon me, and it felt like my bones were breaking. And then it says, when I confessed my sins, God was faithful, and he forgave me of all my iniquity. And so it's a reminder, if you feel like that, man, I know there's some sin in my life, and I'm hiding, and I'm not giving it up, and I'm not dealing with it, when we confess it, you'll find relief. A lot of times Satan will convince us, if we confess it, it's going to bring more fear and more shame and more problems and more issues in our life. But what God wants us to know is, hey, just confess it, and you'll feel the relief and the joy of forgiveness. Another thing that'll be a little hard to wrestle with this morning in the story is the harshness of the punishment on Achan and his family. I really believe that the Old Testament gives us the reason to believe that it wasn't just Achan's family was innocent and they were punished along with him just for good measure, that they were complicit in this sin that Achan was committing. And therefore his whole family was punished together. But the justice of the Lord and the seriousness with which he takes sin should humble us and call us to examine our own life and make sure that we're not hiding things in our life. But it also points us to the cross. There's a great reminder, some great New Testament verses in the lesson this morning about the depth of God's forgiveness towards us. So dig into his word, and I hope it's a great morning.